title of her talk today is Factory Farms, It's Time for a Moratorium. Diane Rosenberg is co-founder of the Alliance for Responsible Agriculture, a coalition of community, state, and national organizations advocating for a factory farm moratorium until there are fewer than 100 polluted waters. She is also president and executive director of Jefferson County Farmers and Neighbors, Inc., and Iowa consultant with the Socially Responsible Agriculture Project. Rosenberg has worked to protect communities and the environment from the impacts of factory farms since 2007. Let's give it up for Diane Rosenberg. There we go.
Okay. So thank you all for being here, and I do want to thank Dave for organizing this, and Mike for assisting him, and it's been a really interesting program today, and I've really appreciated being here. So I was asked to share with you today what's the Iowa Alliance for Responsible Agriculture, what it is, why it got created, and why I work on factory farm issues. So I think the best way to start is to talk about what a factory farm is. And we've heard a lot about industrial agriculture today and CAFOs and this and that, but what I'm going to do is get into a little bit of the nuts and bolts of what we've been all talking about. And then I'm going to talk about its impact on people and in the environment, and then I think it's going to be like really crystal clear why the Iowa Alliance was formed and why I do the work that I do. So as Finian said, the Iowa Alliance for Responsible Agriculture is a coalition of 35 community, state, and national organizations. We're advocating for a factory farm moratorium, and we support the resurgence of regenerative livestock production. We are a pro-agricultural organization. Here's our logo. And so what is a factory farm exactly? Factory farm, concentrated animal feeding operation, CAFO, hog confinement, these are all the same things. So this is an industrial livestock production facility. It's a corporate system. It is not a farm. It is an industry. And it confines pigs and chickens and turkeys and other livestock for their entire life cycle. These typically hold thousands of animals. This building here probably holds about 2,000 pigs. And these animals stand on these concrete slatted floors, and their waste products fall down through these slats into these 6 to 8 foot deep confinement pits, and they just live above their waste products their whole entire life. I'm going to pretty much focus on hogs. Iowa leads the nation in hogs, so I'm going to be pretty much talking about that because that's how I pretty much work with people. These confinement pits, there's no air, there's no light. And so this liquid manure, it putrefies in these buildings, and it sits typically for 6 to 12 months at a time until it's pumped out of the buildings and then spread untreated on a farm field as fertilizer. But it's really untreated hog sewage. This is what they look like inside. This is a gestation crate where the sows are, all they could do is stand up and sit down or lie down. That's it. As they're getting ready to give birth. And this is how our manure is treated. This sewage is treated. It's just put on farmland. Now, the gases that when this manure is putrefying under the building, it's generating 300 volatile organic compounds, and it includes about 150 gases. Hydrogen sulfide and ammonia are two of the worst of these gases. They're blown out of the building by pit fans. See those white, I don't have a little pointer, but those little white, little boxes at the end going along the bottom of that building. Those are pit fans. And these pit fans are blowing the air from the confinement pit out into the community, because if they didn't do that, the hogs would die. That air is so toxic, the hogs would die probably in about an hour or so if they're just breathing in that hydrogen sulfide. So this is getting blown out into the buildings. It's also blowing out particulates, which are little tiny pieces of dander, dust, manure. That's all going out into the community. And that creates a host of quality of life and health problems. Okay, and I'm going to talk about that in a moment, but let me just tell you, that stuff really stinks. So I'm going to give you some numbers so you see how big this problem really is. Iowa has 25 million hogs at any one time, and the vast majority are in about 13,000 or more factory farms, CAFOs. We raise about 50, 60 million hogs a year in this state, generates about 22 billion gallons of toxic hog sewage. That sewage contains heavy metals, bacteria, viruses, antibiotics. All the livestock, all the Iowa livestock together creates enough sewage in the state to equate to a population of 134 million people. We have a population of 3 million in the state, but we make enough hog waste and chicken and turkey and whatever that equates to 134 million people. This manure, so this manure finds its way into waterways through runoff and spills. There's some runoff there. There's a manure spill there, through tile lines. Over the last 80 years, we've had about 800 manure spills that we know about, and 4.4 million fish killed, again, that we know about. And Iowa's waters are like among the worst in the nation. We have 767 polluted waterways as of the 2018 202D list that gets sent to the EPA. And the DNR attributes 92% of the nitrates and 80% of the phosphorus to non-point sources. That's agriculture. So this water pollution, you know, it all impacts drinking water, it impacts recreational water. So we have like a serious problem with our water from this industry. But living next to these CAFOs is no picnic, I'll tell you that. Because this sewage, this putrefying sewage, it stinks. So when people live near a factory farm, they lose their ability to enjoy their homes. They can't often open their windows, they can't enjoy being outdoors or garden, eating outside, entertaining. I know people that just stop having people come to their homes. You know, kids can't play outside. This is all the stuff you take for granted, you know, when you live in your home. You just want to enjoy your home. And the sad thing is, these people, these neighbors, they have no choice in the matter. We Iowans lost local control in 1995, and that means that the CAFO owner has more rights to put up a confinement in a neighborhood than neighbors have the right to say no. And that's just not right. Now, these gases that I mentioned, particularly the hydrogen sulfide and the ammonia, and the particulates too, this is more than just an unpleasant odor. Breathing in these toxins create a host of physical ailments. You know, people that live near CAFO may experience respiratory issues like wheezing or full-blown asthma, headaches, nausea, vomiting, irritable bowel syndrome, depression. You know, when you live next to a CAFO, your health may deteriorate as well as the quality of life. And everything that I'm telling you is all documented in over 50 years of respected peer-reviewed research. The rise in antibiotic resistance is also another alarming development. 70 to 80% of all antibiotics sold in the United States are used in factory farms. And they're used to prevent disease and to enhance growth. The new CDC figures find that 2.8 million people suffer each year from antibiotic-resistant infections, and it results in 35,000 deaths each year. They just revised those figures and upped them from their 2013 report. And this problem is just getting worse. Our antibiotics, for you and I, are threatened. Now, I could tell you a lot more about the impacts of CAFOs. I could go on a long time. I'm not going to do that. But what I do want to do is tell you some stories, you know, some personal stories behind these facts and figures. Because behind these facts and figures, people's lives are being impacted. And we can't lose sight of that for all the facts and figures. So I'm going to tell you the story of a couple in Jefferson County who developed their own pick-your-own blueberry farm on their Century farm. It took them 3 years to develop that. Then a CAFO built half a mile away. Now they're worried about the odors driving away their customers, and when they work on their farm, they often wind up with miserable headaches at the end of a day. And then there's Chris, a woman in Greene County. She had a successful outdoor event center that she had to close down, and she moved away because a CAFO moved in next to her home. There's Joyce in Poweshiek County, forced to give up her elder care business because a stink from the 5,000-head CAFO was so bad it impacted her client's health. And she's forced to wear a mask when she goes outside because of the damage it does to her lungs. And then there's Dick and Lori and their son Tim, two families that live next door to each other in Jefferson County. One night, Dick and Lori heard a noise outside in the middle of the night. They looked outside and they find someone secretly building a 1,200-head CAFO. And their son Tim was in Iraq at the time, and Dick was being treated for cancer. They had to give up gardening and socializing at their home because of the stench. They got into a lawsuit, it settled, and then the CAFO owner, who was pretty angry about the lawsuit, started depositing dead animals on their property and shooting off his gun nearby to just alarm them. And then there's Lois, who operates several greenhouses in Batavia. Her greenhouses are next to a field that gets CAFO manure. She waters her plants with water from a well, and that well got contaminated with the CAFO manure. One day she's watering her plants and she wets her foot that has a sore on it from eczema. She gets necrotizing fasciitis, and which is a flesh-eating strep infection. That was further complicated when she contracted antibiotic-resistant MRSA, and that whole experience nearly killed her just for watering her plants because she lives right next to a field that gets CAFO manure. There's Deb and Jason in Wapello County, and they had to move from their beautiful log cabin homestead that she and her husband built from scratch. They had several outbuildings. It was their retirement home. They got two CAFOs with 10,000 head altogether built on either side of them. Deb got sick, environmental asthma, irritable bowel syndrome, depression. They're gone. They moved to Oregon. They had to get the heck away from there. Gary also contracted environmental asthma in Davis County. Took him years to sell his house, but he finally got out because nobody wanted to live there. He finally got out, moved to Colorado, was doing a lot better, but he had to leave. He had a nice place. Sue in northeast Iowa in sensitive karst terrain. Her well was polluted by hog manure, had to spend her own money to chlorinate it so it would be drinkable. And then this delightful picture, this delightful picture there, Dion and his family, who wound up with a 1,200-head CAFO 174 feet away from his bedroom window. Now, this is just a small fraction of people's lives behind those numbers that I just gave you. And nobody should have to live like this. This is social injustice and environmental injustice, and it needs to stop. Our current laws don't come close to addressing any of these problems, and that is why we need a factory farm moratorium, a halt in new and expanding CAFO construction until we get this industry under control. And that's why the Iowa Alliance for Responsible Agriculture formed in 2014. We have a lot of good organizations that are represented here today and other places around the state that are doing really good work to address this factory farm issue. But it's when we work together toward a common goal that we can really start to make progress on productive change. And, you know, it works. You know, in 2018, Senator David Johnson listened to IRA members, and he listened to people around the state, and he introduced a factory farm moratorium bill. And IRA continues to advocate for this legislation. That's what that picture was. We were, as Chris mentioned, we were just at the State House the other day with our factory farm moratorium bill. Each year, this bill gets more support, more co-sponsors. And we have a new bill that's just about to be introduced by Representative Sharon Steckman with even more support than the previous years. We have 26 counties in the state that's calling for either a moratorium or an overhaul of the master matrix because they recognize we've got a factory farm problem on our hands. And public opinion is growing. 63% of Iowans support a factory farm moratorium. So IRA is in this for the long haul. Achieving a moratorium is not an overnight journey. We recognize that. But we're committed to getting there. We're going to continue to work until we get the support to enact a factory farm moratorium. We're not going anywhere. We're going to be there until it happens. And I would like to just put out there, if your organization would like to become a member of the Iowa Alliance, you are more than welcome. Please contact me, contact Chris. Here's my contact information, because we are going to do this. Thank you.